Hello, I'm Otto, and in this tutorial we're going to be covering everything train related. Well, not everything. I'm not going over how to set up rails and a few other things, but we are definitely going to be talking about interrupts. We're going to be talking about train stations, and at the end we're going to be talking about maybe kind of what I do and how we're going to be limiting some of these trains and make it so that we don't need like 1,000 trains on the map. We can do a lot of this with just a few. So for starters, we have a providing station. So this is a kind of a mining outpost. This is bringing in iron ore to be sent to our train hub down here. As you can see, I have a bunch of these set up. I've deleted all my trains so that we can kind of do this from scratch and go through and make sure that this is actually going to work. So for a providing station, and this is specific to solids, so we do separate our solid trains from our liquid trains. So in this case, we are going to, all we need to know is what is the name. So in this case, we're going to name this providing chest, passive provider. That is it, purely and simple. You can see I have 21 of them. And then we are going to enable train limit of 3. So what, like this obviously already snapped to 3 for me. That is because I already have train stations named this. So anything that we kind of go over that affects the some of the stats within, or the settings I should say, I will discuss those as well. So we are going to enable train limit and set it to 3. So why 3? Well, it's going to be different depending on how you have things set up. So in this case, I actually have a stacker here that allows for trains to come in and wait for the trains that are at the loading stations, at the providing stations. They will sit and wait for them to leave, and once they leave, then they will take their turn. So that gives me 1 train here and a slot for 2 trains, and then 1 train here and a slot for 2 trains. So I have this set up for 3 trains. So that is it for the providing, the specifically solid providing station. Okay, so we are going to go to the requesting side. Okay, so we are at the train hub where the request is being made for the material. So we have our train station here, and in this case we are going to name this the item that is being requested, which in this case is going to be stone, because this is a stone line that I have set up here. So we are requesting in stone, and we are going to use the requester chest. As you can see, I have a couple of these set up already. So if this is as far as you want to go, you do need to enable train limit, minimum 1, that allows for 1 train to be here. If you have a stacker system set up like this, this one is quite large. You can do 2 or more depending on how frequently those trains need to come in. And I'm using 1x2 trains in this. It really doesn't matter if you use 1x1, 1x2, 3, 4, 2x5, 2x8. It really doesn't matter how big the train is. All that matters is what is the name of the station at this point in time, at least. Okay, so that covers the solid provider and the solid requester. Now we're going to talk about the liquids. Okay, so now we are at a liquid providing station. This is providing oil on Novice, and we need to differentiate between liquids and solids. And the reason why is because if we just named this the requester chest, then we would have any train that is set up to go to a requester chest show up here, but we need it to specifically be a liquid train. So the way that I like to kind of differentiate them is I just simply like to call this advanced oil processing with the requester chest. And there's 2 reasons why I like to do that. 1, because it visibly looks like a bunch of different liquids, which is great because this is not necessarily just catering to a single liquid. Like once the trains load up, they will determine which train station they need to go to, and once they are empty, they can go to any train station. So if you had, for instance, water on this planet, you were collecting water and shipping that to the hub, which I don't know why you would, but that is an option because there's water everywhere on this planet. But if you had, for instance, water, or let's say sulfuric acid, you were exporting sulfuric acid to a uranium mine, then you need to be able to have the ability, or at least the way that I have things set up, you want to have the ability to just be able to place a single train and it will just do whatever it wants to do, whatever it's going to do. So I like to just call all of these, regardless of its fluid, the advanced oil processing. And we're going to set a limit of 3 for here as well, because I have the same stacker setup where I have 2 train stations and 4 lanes for a stacker. And that is it for the providing fluid station. So now we're going to go back to the hub and talk about the requesting aspect of the fluid requesting stations. We are back here at our hub, and I have a station here that is requesting in oil products. It's the only liquid that I have, but like I said, this will work for any planet, any kind of liquid that you have. In the solid cases, it will bring in any kind of solids, regardless of the planet. So we are going to name this station, you probably have guessed, we are going to name this oil and requester chest, or yes, requester chest. And that is it. We're going to enable train limit for now. You can just set it to 1 or 2, like I said, whatever kind of capacity you have. We are going to be, at the end of this episode, setting up a way to have combinators determine how many trains can fit and request in that many trains. So next up is going to be, well, the trains themselves. We're going to talk about, sorry, before we get into the trains, there are a couple of other things that we need to talk about, train station names. So I have a shunting station set up, and I am going to head over there. And here we are at the shunting station. So as for naming the shunting station, it is just quite simply named shunting. It is going to be the same regardless of whether or not the train is bringing liquids or solids. And we're going to enable train station limit of 1. This is a hard limit. We are not adding anything to this because we don't need a stacker. We just have a single lane coming in and all. I mean, this basically is a stacker. So you don't have to play with shunting stations. The advantage to playing with shunting stations is you can have more trains than you actually need and have them basically sitting here waiting for openings at other train stations like your providers. And if you don't play with them, you do kind of need to make sure that you have enough trains. So for instance, every time you add let's say a new mining outpost, and it can contain, let's say in my case, 3 to 6 different trains, you would need to add 3 to 6 different trains. Or with a shunting station, I could actually fill all of these slots, plus the necessary train stations. I mean, you get the idea. This is a way for trains to have a place to sit. It's kind of like, a little bit of a buffer for trains. And so I do like having that. I do not have a train station with this particular name, but let's say that you had a refueling station. And I've dealt with this in 2 different ways. I've dealt with this having refueling done at my shunting stations. So here, because every train would eventually come in here. The way that I do trains now, they don't necessarily always come through here. So I do have it actually set up so that my trains are being refueled at the train hub, which is every single train will 100% of the time come through here. So I have nuclear fuel being created down here from some rocket fuel that I have being created for my rocket silos, and it just branches off. And I have bots bring in the materials that are needed to make the nuclear fuel. Nuclear fuel is awesome. These trains run absolutely forever on a single fuel cell. So I very highly suggest this, and after doing some testing, I now export nuclear fuel out to all of my planets just because of how amazing it is. Yeah, so I do all of my refueling here, but we're going to talk about interrupts in case you have a separate refueling station. We're going to talk about all that too. So let's get to some random spot on our train lines and talk about train interrupts. Okay, so we are at a nearby location, and I am going to go ahead and place some trains. I like to use, in the case of this map, we are using 1x2 trains, so that is how I'm going to have this set up. So now we need to talk about interrupts. Interrupts and scheduling. So as for the scheduling, we are going to be adding in our passive provider chest. That is the station that we want to go to, and the wait condition is wait until full cargo. Once you have full cargo, then you can do whatever else you want. This is the only item that I'm going to be adding to the schedule. Everything else will be done by interrupts. So for the first interrupt, we are going to be doing our requesting station. So we need to add in, now this is just the name. Like once you get to the interrupts, this is purely naming. This part, as far as the name goes, doesn't matter. You can name this whatever you want, as long as the name is the same for every train that you use after this. And speaking of names, we're actually going to call this particular train system solid train. This is also very important. This is not necessarily something that doesn't matter. And the reason why is anytime you name a train solid train, it will default to all of the settings that you create here, unless you have, and that also means editing the train. So if it is named solid train and you do any kind of edits, this will ripple across to every other train that has this name. So you want to be cautious of that. Okay, so interrupts. So I'm going to be naming this an arbitrary just item parameter and requester chest. Again, this name doesn't matter. You could literally just call this, requesting station or something. What does matter and what does need to be very specific are all of these. So let's start with our target. Our target is going to be, and this is very specific, item parameter, no spaces, that very much matters, and requester chest. That is it. No spaces, nothing in between, nothing after. Item parameter, requester chest. Hit OK, good to go. And we are going to wait until you have empty cargo. So that is it for the target. Now we need a condition on what makes them go to this target. So our condition is going to be if item count and then item parameter is greater than 0. So if it contains any kind of an item, this is kind of it says a special wildcard. Basically what this symbol does is this symbol allows the train to determine whatever is in its cargo, and it will change this icon to whatever's in its cargo. And that also changes the name of the station that it is going to. So if we had coal in here, this would change the interrupt station, or the requesting station, to coal requesting chest. And that is it for this. We're going to save that. Okay, so at this point, this train is fully functionable. Like, you can just let this go into any world, and regardless of how you have it set up, this train will function as it is right now. We could just hit automatic and it will go and do its thing. But I like to have a couple of other things. One, I like to use a shunting station. And two, I did say that we were going to set this up for those of you that have refueling stations, separate refueling stations. I think I already said this, but I personally either set up fueling for my shunting stations, or I set them up, and in this case, at the requesting stations. Okay, so for our shunting station, I have this shunting station down here, and we are going to add in an interrupt that I'm just going to call shunting. So our target is going to be the shunting station, and the condition that we are going to add to determine whether or not it needs to go to the shunting station is if destination full or no path. So if their destination is full or there's no path to it, it will go to the shunting station and wait until, let's see, station is not full. And in this case, we need to be very specific. We are telling this to go to the shunting station until a very specific station is not full. And in this case, we are going to do the provider chest station. So that means that in general, it's going to try to pick up items. If, I suppose you could also add in, no, that doesn't matter. Okay, anyways. So in general, it is going to try to go to the provider station. And if it can't, that's going to give it a, let's say, destination full. And then it's going to go to shunting. And it's going to wait until the providing station is empty. And then it will go from the shunting station to the providing station. From the providing station, it will go to the requesting station. And there are not going to be any situations where a train will depart from here unless it can actually make it here. So there's also no situations where we will have trains sitting at a shunting station with cargo unless we just want to. So sometimes I'll set up like a military outposting train station, and in that case I will have trains filled with materials and sitting at a shunting station. But for the general purpose trains, it should never have materials and be sitting at a shunting station. It is perfectly fine as if it is at a providing station and full and waiting to go to a requesting station. That's perfectly fine. So this is it for the shunting. We're just going to save this. This is the entirety of everything that I use, but I did say we were going to be adding in, just in case you have a separate fueling station, we are going to be adding that in. So I'm going to be adding in fuel parameter and provider chest. That is just the name that I'm going to give this one. In case you have a refueling station, this is probably what you would want to name it. Maybe we should just, okay, this name doesn't matter. What matters is the target. So the target would be, I don't know, let's say you had rocket fuel being made, and that would be a providing station. So this would be your target. You'd have a refueling station that would be providing fuel, let's say. And the interrupt condition would be if any fuel, fuel in any of your locomotives, and we can do item parameter here. Let's say is less than 2. So I'm gonna say 2. If you're using nuclear fuel, you could do equals 0 or less than 1. If you're using coal, you could say maybe 10, less than 10. In general, you should probably have a fuel station that is close enough that even if you only had 2 fuel to coal, the train should be able to make it there. So that is going to be our condition. If your fuel is less than 2, go here and wait until fuel is full. So that is going to be it for the solid train. And next up is going to be the liquid train. So we are just going to name this liquid train. And it's going to look very, very similar to our solid trains. So in this case, we are going to add in our train station is this one, the advanced oil processing provider. And you're going to wait until you have full cargo. For the first interrupt, we are going to name this one fluid parameter and requester chest, again, to kind of differentiate between the liquid and the solid. Because these interrupt conditions will be slightly different, basically the same, but slightly different. So the target is going to be, let's see, fluid parameter and requester chest. And your condition is going to wait until you have empty cargo. Oops. As for the condition on what brings us there, it's kind of the same. We're going to have a fluid count here. Item parameter, fluid parameter, sorry. Fluid is greater than 0. So if it has fluid that is greater than 0, then it will go to a station that is requesting its contents, and it will wait until it has empty cargo. For the shunting station, we do want to make sure that this is different from the other station, the other shunting station for the solid trains. So I'm going to name this Advanced Oil Processing Shunting. And the reason why is because we are, yes, going to shunting, but we are going to be waiting until a different station is not full, which is the Advanced Oil Processing and Provider. And same situation here, destination full or no path. So that's the condition on when we need to go to the shunting station. And this name down here is, again, just to make sure that it is separated from our solid trains. So I'm going to save that interrupt. And the fueling. Oh, come on. Oh, I did not save the other train. I could have just, you know, if I had that train on the map, it would have been able to use the same parameter. But anyways, or the same interrupt. What was it? Fluid. Sorry, fuel requester. So this is just going to be the exact same thing as the other one. Wait. Yes, station is going to be, let's say, rocket fuel. And provider. Wait until full fuel. And the reason why you would want to go over there is if any fluid, any fuel is less than 2. Okay, and that is going to be it for our liquid trains. Next up, we are going to discuss how to make sure that you only have the amount of trains coming to the provider, sorry, to the requesting stations that you need. And we're going to be using combinators and circuit conditions and a couple different things for that. I should have saved that. I'm going to have to redo that for the blueprint. No! Anyways, I'm going to head up to the train hub, and I will see you back shortly. Okay, so we are back at the train hub, or the requesting stations, and in this case we are at the stone requester. So we need to be able to set this up in a way that we can request in trains, and we want to be able to set the limit based on the capacity that we have available for a train to come in. So I've done a little bit of prep work. So every single one of these is connected together via the red wire, and we can kind of see how many we have if we connect it to a power pole. We have roughly 5,600 capacity here, and I have limited some of these in differing amounts because of the way that this is offloading. This is not the best way to offload, but this is a very compact version, so this is the one that I'm using currently. So to be able to request in some chests, or some trains, sorry, we need a constant combinator. So we're going to request in 10,000 stone. And the reason why I have this set to 10,000 is because a train cargo can hold 40 stacks, stone stacks to 50. So that's going to be 2,000 stone per cargo unit, and I have 2. So that's going to give me a train capacity is going to be 4,000. 10,000 gives me, roughly 2.5 trains worth of material. So if we had nothing here, it would be requesting in at least 2 trains. And then the extra 2,000 is just a little bit of a buffer zone. So we need to make an arithmetic combinator next. Give this some power. So the containers that are all connected together are going to go into the back of this. So now you can see that we have the stone here. It is specifically 5,688. We are going to say each and multiply this by -1. And then output each. So input is 5,600, output is minus 5,600. And we are going to take another arithmetic combinator, and we're going to connect the output of the negative value and the constant into the back of the new arithmetic combinator. So what does that that what that is going to do is it is going to sum these two totals together just by the act of connecting them. So now you will see that we have the ability to bring in 4,300. And we're going to say each and divide that by 4,000 because 4,000 is the capacity of a train. Normally, the signal outputs or the signals that you use don't matter, but in this case, they do specifically matter. So we're going to be setting this to L. And the reason why this is L is because that is how we... let me just connect this real quick. L is how we determine the train limit. So we want to be able to set this as a train limit. And we're going to get into this in a bit, but for now I'm going to deactivate that so that goes away. So now we have in this, we have the quantity that we can bring in and converting it into trains. So now we have the ability to bring in one train. So this would output the L signal of 1, which would then, once this is connected to the train stop, will give this a train limit of 1. The last thing that we need to do is add in a decider combinator, and the output for the second arithmetic combinator is going to go into the back of the decider combinator, and this is also going to go into the train station. So now we have set train limit of the L, and then we're also going to be reading the train count. So the way that the read train count works is it determines the train count based on not just whether or not there's a train sitting here, but also if any trains are on the way. That is how we get the train count. So since there's no trains incoming, the train count is nothing. So we're going to say if L is greater than C, which is the train count, then output whatever the item is that we're requesting, in this case stone, and a value of 1. And this will be put along the green line, and we're going to connect that to this power line and chain that into our main network. So I'm going to cut all of this and insert it into here. And now you can see that since we have the ability to bring in a train, we are now broadcasting that we have a signal of 1 stone. Now, why are we doing it like this? So now, if we go to a stone providing station, I have set these up to enable if the signal of the item that is being provided, in this case stone, if the signal is greater than 0, enable if the signal is greater than 0. So now this train station, as you can see when we zoom out, is enabled, and this one beside it is disabled. This has not been set up yet in this particular save. This one would be iron, but we are not receiving an iron signal, so this one is disabled. What that means is that no train can go here unless they were already on the way when this was disabled. Since this one is enabled, that means that any available train that is in the network will now try to go to this station, or at least for the solid trains. I guess maybe this one was... Okay, this one is the test one that we used earlier, but I would also need to, for instance, if I was setting this up new, this would go along the green wire. Oh, I already have that connected. So this chains into the main network, and we would enable if stone is greater than 0. Now you can see that the train station is available for a stone, for stone to come in here. Now, obviously this is iron, so that is not what we're doing. That was just for demonstration purposes. Anyways, so why do it like that? Why am I doing it like that? In general, if you were to just leave these 4 train stations as set limit of 3, set limit of 3, set limit of 3, and 3, the trains like to take the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance from here are these 4 train stations. So these 4 train stations would fill up with the first 12 trains before any of these other stations would fill up. However, if you did it the way that I'm doing it, which is enabling it only when we need product in the train hub, these will be deactivated. They're only going to enable if we need the material. So that means that once one of these train stations, however, they are set up for whichever material, once that material becomes available to bring in a train, then all of the stations that are providing that material will open up, and any of the trains will then prioritize going to those. Otherwise, they would just go to the shunting station. Okay, so that is how I set these up. If this was a liquid, this would be literally set up the exact same way. The difference would be, obviously, we're requesting in, let's say, oil. I'll just use this one as the example. And I would request in a different amount. I'd probably request in 100,000. And the reason for that is one cargo train can bring 50,000. No, is it 50? Yes. This can store 50,000. And we normally put containers in like this. Each of these is 25,000. So this is about one liquid cargo worth of train. So this is equal to a full train worth of liquid. So the dividing by 4,000 would actually be 100,000, since that is the quantity that a train can hold. Okay, so that is going to be it for me for this tutorial. I will have these blueprints available in my Discord. I think I'm going to set this up in a way that, you can use this in your world. So it doesn't even really matter, like, if you use a 1x2 train. Let's say that you had 1x4 trains. All you really need to do for my blueprints is place the train down somewhere before naming any of yours. Once you place this train down, you can then rename any of your trains to, like, let's say solid trains, and then they would be able to work off of that, and then you could delete this after you have a train available. I might go ahead and just make some for a 1x4 train, since it's the most common. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have different train blueprints, 1x2, 1x4, and I'm going to set them up individually to have separate interrupts. So if you just want the base of, like, the providing stations and requesting stations, I will have a blueprint that's just for that. If you have one that has shunting, I'll have one for that. If you have one for a refueling station, I'll have one for that, and I'll have different variations in between, so that, if you have a refueling station and no shunting station, if you have a shunting station and a refueling station, or if you only have a shunting station, I'll set that up for each of those and label them accordingly. Anyways, that is going to be it for me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It is very helpful. All the likes, it's pretty incredible how you can kind of see the adjustments when people start liking this. Anyways, that is going to be it for me. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.